The one question that all of you have been asking is the safety numbers of this updated Creta. So the entire instrument panel has been redesigned. It's the similar thing that the Volkswagen Group uses, both the Kushaq and the Taygun. The facelift also includes a bum lift. It's the new year and it starts with what will be one of the best-selling cars of the year, the new Creta. Well, this is not a new Creta, even though all the communication will scream that at you, but this is the heavily facelifted Creta and it starts with this new nose. Now, to rewind back, the earlier Creta, it has won plenty of comparison tests here at Evo India. We are great fans of that SUV, but we aren't fans of the styling. We've always said this over and over again that even after so many years, 5 odd years, it hasn't warmed up, especially to me. But this changes everything. Now this is more muscular, it has got more character. I really like this full width LED DRL, even though I think that this still should be a signature theme of EVs, but now everything is getting it, and this does cut a striking shape on the road, especially at night. It has this H-shaped motif, which is also replicated at the back. We will talk about that in a bit. LED lights, nice meaty elements out here, gives it a more muscular appeal along with this skid plate. It's all in plastic and it's no off-roader, but it has that nice SUV vibe. Over on the side, the overall length has grown by 30 odd millimeters, but that's because of the new bumpers. It retains that signature Creta line on the rear that has got those roof rails. Otherwise, the sides are the same. It's got the same character lines on the rear haunches, the same door pulls. So overall, the sides have remained the same, but the whole design really has gone up a notch. What do you think? Let us know in the comments. And now come over to the rear. The facelift also includes a bum lift. Well, the rear also has been heavily redesigned. So you now get these collected tail lamps, and when you press the brake, that's when the entire thing lights up. And this is something that you will definitely notice while following one of these newly facelifted Cretas on the road. It also has this H sort of motif going on. It does look really nice, and it significantly changes the design and the whole appeal of the Creta. Also, the tail lamp has now been moved to the center position on the rear bumper. The rear bumper has also been changed. This is all plastic, but it does look nice and chunky and funky, gives it more muscle, and the overall stance is actually pretty good. Another huge update is to the interior. So the entire instrument panel has been redesigned. You now get this single screen, which is obviously split into two screens. You get a 10.25-inch infotainment and a 10.25-inch digital cluster. The infotainment system, well, that is more or less the same as the earlier Creta. Also the navigation, the menu systems, that is the same. Also, what is retained and which is a bit of a downer is that it doesn't get wireless Apple CarPlay or wireless Android Auto. Neither does it get a USB-C connection. There is a USB-C port out here, but that is only for charging your phones. If you want to connect your phone to CarPlay and all of that, you still have to use the older USB cable to plug in to your phone. So that shows you that the architecture has been carried over from the earlier Creta. Now in this class, it is of course important to have a 360 camera, and that's what the Creta has. So you can adjust the views on the touchscreen. You also get this fixed view where you can zoom out, zoom in. So that's a good feature to have. It gets a wireless charger, but you now have this intelligent sort of design where the passenger can keep their mobile phones on this tray on top of the glove box. Also new are these aircon vents, and they are of a good quality. Also retained are the seat coolers. So that's a nice touch to have. And the overall design is actually very well thought of, and everything that you would want, including all those connected car features, including the SOS button, the call button, the blue link button, all of that is retained. Now, the steering wheel also, it looks the same as the earlier Creta, but what is different is this gray color scheme that has been used. If you remember, the earlier turbo-petrol had the black color scheme, whereas the diesel had the beige scheme. Now you get this gray two-tone color scheme, and to be fair, I'm not a big fan of grey. Grey doesn't really convey the sense of premiumness. The earlier black scheme I really liked. This will take some time to get used to. What you do get is a steering wheel that adjusts for reach as well as rake. So the seating position is good, but the seats, they don't go down high enough. So now this is the lowest that the seat can go to. So when you're driving, you still feel like you're sitting on top rather than within the car. That was a criticism of the earlier Creta as well, and that again has not changed. Now obviously you have an air purifier, you have the big panoramic sunroof, the fit finish is good, though overall quality is okay. It's not like stunning. The damping, for instance, of this temperature control, which this entire panel is new, that doesn't really feel all that high quality. You get a manual transmission with the diesel as well as an automatic, whereas on the turbo petrol, you get the 7-speed dual clutch transmission, no manual transmission. And now let's jump into the back seat. The wheelbase of the Creta remains unchanged, and that means the space at the back is also unchanged. But that said, the Creta was always one of the more spacious mid-size SUVs, and that is a trait that is retained. You still get a smallish transmission tunnel, but you can actually fit in 3 people out here, unlike some of its rivals in this category. The seat back, the recline angle can be adjusted, so you can adjust that a bit. You have your armrest. The panoramic sunroof comes over your head, so you actually get that whole sense of space and light coming into the cabin. You get these soft cushions, which obviously is something that we first saw on Mercs and that you now get on Hyundais. You also get this screen for the rear windows, and that will shield you from the sun. So overall, very nicely designed. You have your aircon vents, no separate temperature control, but you have your aircon vents, and you get 2 USB-C chargers. You also get this tray where you can keep your phone while it is charging. So intelligently designed the overall ambience is. The seats are also comfortable, though you do sit a little bit high up. So that means that you do get good under thigh support as well. You can stick in your toes under the front seat. So spaciousness is not a problem at all with the Creta. Again, another Creta trait that has been retained. The one question that all of you have been asking is the safety numbers of this updated Creta. Now, as of filming this video, we do not know. Suppose if it has come out after this video, we'll have it in the supers. But I honestly think that this will move up a notch. This should score 5 stars in the Bharat NCAP. If it does not score it, I personally would be very, very disappointed. And the very fact that they have an exoskeleton out here where they've marked out all the different steels that they've used. So this purple is the ultra high strength steel, the dark blue is the high strength steel, and the others are mild steel. So it's all out here. Those are the crumpled zones, obviously. So it's out here. And that says that Hyundai are very confident that they will score really well in the Bharat NCAP. I think that's very important. That is the most important thing that this facelifted Creta has to do, has to score 5 stars in the crash tests. So how different is the Creta to drive from the earlier Creta? We've come onto this kind of dirt track. Now this is the turbo petrol, and it also has these different traction modes where you also get a sand mode. But honestly, this is still front wheel drive, and this is not a 4x4. If you go out into the sand, you are asking for trouble. But one thing that I can tell you, driving it on this sort of rutted track, is that it feels a little bit more robust than the earlier Creta used to. And I think that is down to the stiffer body shell. That's one of the other improvements that Hyundai have made to the Creta, where the body shell now uses more higher strength steels. That is to take care and account for a higher crash safety rating. Let's see what the safety ratings are. We don't know as of now, but I think that does deliver a slight improvement in the way the Creta drives. It's the similar thing that the Volkswagen Group uses. Both the Kushaq and the Taygun, they have that high torsional rigidity platform, and that makes a lot of difference to the way it drives. And clearly, it is making a difference with this updated Creta. So this Creta is a little bit more than just a facelift. And once you get onto smoother roads, there is a slight bit more sophistication in the way this drives. So when you hit poor patches of road, it doesn't crash into it. It rides in a nice manner. It soaks it up well. The Creta always had good ride comfort. In fact, it skewed more towards comfort than handling, and it's the same with this. Unlike the Seltos, where we said that the wheels did make the ride comfort a bit too stiff, here it is not jarring. It actually rides well. It has that slight firm edge which you get normally with most European vehicles, and I personally like that. There is no downside to the ride comfort on this updated Creta, and that is a big plus point. Now, the steering, it remains light. When you put it into the sport mode, this steering does weigh up, and it weighs up quite significantly, but it is sort of an artificial weight that is added onto the steering, and it really doesn't enhance the driving experience in any real measurable manner. But the engine, now that is the big change. Now this is the 1.5 turbo petrol engine. Earlier the Creta had the 1.4 turbo petrol. This is the 1.5. It's not a new engine. It's an engine that we've seen before in both the Alcazar as well as the Verna. It's also there in the Kia Seltos. So it is a Hyundai Motor Group engine. Now the power, it has gone up to 158 bhp. It also has more torque, 253 Newton meters, and it clearly has more performance. You step on it, and it does move with more enthusiasm. In fact, you now get a wee bit of torque steer as well with the Creta, which is nice. It's a fun thing to have. There's a bit of wheel spin also when you actually step on it. The ESP light is flashing away. Cool. Not bad at all. This is a quickish SUV, no question about it. You also now get paddle shifters for manual control. This also works well, so that's a good touch. The engine, it doesn't sound sporty as such. The volume levels do go up as you step on it, but that's just engine noise. It's not like a sporty engine noise. But this now adds a noticeable layer of enthusiasm to the Creta. It's nice, I like it. We tested the Seltos with this 1.5 engine. It does do 0 to 100 in under 10 seconds, 9.73 with the DCT automatic transmission. The one drawback with this DCT is, and that is obviously to extend its life, is that you can't launch it aggressively. When you brake torque it, it's not going to launch at say 3000 RPM. It launches at a very sedate speed, and once it comes on boost, it really picks up its skirts and runs. So once you get going, the in-gear acceleration, the quick kick down, all of that does make this a quick, fast, enjoyable SUV to drive. The DCT gearbox also, it's shifting pretty quickly. Earlier we used to complain that it was not as quick as DSG gearboxes, but it's almost closed the gap. The gap is very, very close now. The Creta also gets level 2 ADAS, which is a good thing. Now, in the city, more often than not, I tend to switch it off because it does intervene in places where you don't expect it to and you don't need it to. But now, I've been driving the Tucson for, almost a year now. That also has the same ADAS system. And nowadays, I don't remember to switch that off. And subconsciously, the way I drive is with a little bit more factor of safety factored into the gaps that I maintain in the city. Just because in the back of my mind, I know that the brakes are going to kick in and the ADAS is going to intervene. I actually maintain more of a gap, which makes me indirectly a safer driver. So I don't want the ADAS to intervene. I don't want the brakes to come on. So the way I drive sort of accounts for that. It's strange, but it's sort of making me an even safer driver. I never thought that would be a factor with ADAS, but it is true. So now I don't switch it off, and now that ADAS very, very, very rarely cuts in the city. And now when you go out on the highways, always leave it on, because you never know when a dog runs across or some idiot comes into your side, and if you're not concentrating fully, you might brake fractionally later, and the ADAS will brake in time and save you from an accident. And especially you go on to the newer expressways, and that makes driving more comfortable. You keep it in cruise control, you have your adaptive cruise control, all of that is on, and you can sort of take a step back and let the car do a little bit more for you. I must talk about the other engines that are available on the Creta. So the range starts with the 113 bhp 1.5 litre naturally aspirated petrol engine that has that option of a CVT transmission. This version, which I'm right now driving, is the diesel. This gets the option of a 6-speed automatic transmission. Of course, you have the manual transmission. This makes 114 bhp, so obviously it's not as quick as the turbo petrol. But honestly, the power is enough. It's never like that you're feeling it lacks power and it lacks overtaking grunt. In fact, the torque, 250 Newton meters, is almost on par with the turbo petrol, which makes 253 Newton meters. You step on it, and it does move quite enthusiastically. The engine also, the refinement is pretty good. You can make out it's a diesel engine. Obviously, there is no hiding that fact, but the refinement is good. And the fuel efficiency is excellent, best in class, over 20 kmpl as claimed on the ARAI test cycle. This obviously will be the meat of the market. While we're driving the diesel, I'll also spend some time to talk about the ride comfort. Now, Hyundai have done the sensible thing. They've not upsized to 18-inch wheels. They've stuck with 17-inch wheels, and that is to the benefit of ride comfort. This still rides very well. That used to be a plus point on the Creta, and that continues to remain a plus point on the Creta. Now, what I think is that with the addition of ultra-high strength steels in the platform, the structural rigidity and the torsional rigidity has gone up. Hyundai aren't revealing any numbers or whether the torsional rigidity has gone up or not, but I suspect that because of that additional strength in the structure, that actually has benefits in terms of the dynamics. So it feels a little stronger, more robust than the earlier Creta. That obviously gives it a nicer driving feel. You can really feel it over bad patches of road where it feels more robust, and that is definitely a step in the right direction. Now, in terms of overall Creta sales, 50% have always been diesel, and that's why this diesel is very important. That's why we are focusing on it for a bit. In terms of the petrol, it is the NA engine that accounts for the bulk of the sales. But this is the Evo India channel, and the turbo petrol is what we really enjoy driving, and that's why I'm going to jump back into that car. Now let's talk about handling over these state highways, which have a few corners. This is accurate. You can place it with accuracy. The steering, well, it's not very feelsome. I've put it into sport mode, so it's just become a little heavy now. But it's accurate. You don't have to keep fidgeting with the steering. It tells you exactly what's going on. The suspension, there is no float and wallow. These are slightly bumpy roads, and it's dealing with it very well. Again, this, I suspect, is down to the increased torsional rigidity. They haven't yet told us what the numbers are or figures are. I will prod them later tonight, and if they do tell us something, you'll have it in the supers. Hyundai, that way, have always been cagey about revealing too many details about their platforms. They never talk about platform sharing, all of that. But clearly, something has been done. Things have been worked on with this facelifted Creta. Okay, some other things which are very familiar on the Creta. This driving position. I've always complained that the Creta's driving position is a bit too high, and that is retained. You're sitting too high, even though these electric seats, they have height adjust, they don't go down low enough. That's the only real thing. Also, the seats don't feel as wide and as enveloping as what the Taygun and the Kushaq have. Those have slightly nicer seats. And the steering, this material used, doesn't feel as premium. I'm also not a fan of the grey interiors. I prefer the earlier black. Even the beige black on the diesel, the old Creta diesel, was nicer looking and at least seemed more premium to my eye. I don't know, what do you guys think? Let me know in the comments. But that apart, everything else is rather spot on the Creta. The Creta also gets the mood lighting. It retains the Bose sound system, which sounds really good. It also has a bit of copper out here. So the lining over here for the instrument panel, that's got copper. There is a copper sort of ring around the start-stop button. This does get auto start-stop with this new engine. That is done to improve fuel efficiency, reduce your emissions. So, a lot of nice touches. These guys really have worked hard. What has the Creta lacked all these years? Comfort? Not really. The Creta was always comfortable and they've retained that same comfort levels. Space? Well, this is still more of a 5-seater than many of its rivals. And if you want more space, there is the Alcazar, and there obviously will be an updated Alcazar to follow this updated Creta. Features? Well, honestly, come on, what more do you want? There are so many features thrown at it, except for that one thing that it has always lacked, and that is Apple CarPlay and Android Auto wirelessly. You still have to connect a wire, and that wire still is that old USB-A cable, but otherwise it has everything. Okay, maybe you'd want massagers, but at this price, it is pushing it. And what should the price be? Well, look at the Seltos prices. 20 lakh rupees for the top-end Creta is what you are looking at. This cannot be any more expensive than the Seltos. So just look at the Seltos prices and you have the ballpark prices of this updated Creta. You don't have to wait till the 16th, even though this video is going to drop one day after. So in the supers out here, we will have the final pricing, but it can't be more than 20 lakh rupees, which is what the Seltos price is. So pricing also will be in the ballpark. Now, the only real thing that the Creta has lacked, which all of you guys on the Evo India channel have complained about, is the safety rating. And if this can move up to full 5 stars in the Bharat NCAP crash ratings, well, the Creta will have the Creta class to make merry with.